Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. It is your host, Cesar Espino, and today I have a special guest. His name is Mike Moll. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good, Cesar. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Awesome.
Wonderful. I'm glad that you're here. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick introduction to our listeners, and then we can dive into learn more about you. Mike is a marketing coach who helps marketers charge what they are worth, then remove themselves from daily operations. He focuses on creating sustainability rather than aggressive growth by optimizing pricing and systems. He hopes to help other marketers who want to create an amazing business while having time for hobbies, travel, and enjoying life. And that's actually pretty interesting because I know that we all want that. This it doesn't really matter which business you're in. We always want to have the time to do more hobbies, more travel, and just enjoy life in general, right? Oftentimes we're finding ourselves doing so much stuff and just really working and not enjoying life itself. So definitely, I think that's a pretty good aspect, and I want to hear more about that. Before I dive into that, though, I want to learn more about you and tell me a little bit about your upbringing and where you're originally from and how was that for you?
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in Canada, just outside of Toronto. It was funny. I kind of had this split in my life where I had like a very normal, cookie cutter, normal, happy household childhood up until 10. And then my parents split when I was 10, and it kind of went, pretty sideways from there. I kind of moved to a different spot, and it was just weird having that, just that different ecosystem now of like one parent here, one parent there. It was very kind of disruptive, and I get it. You see it later in life that sometimes you're not meant to be with someone, as someone who's now actually divorced as well. Like I get it doesn't always work out, but at the time it was very odd, and I think I kind of had this feeling of being lost for a lot of years. Through my teenage years, I was very unsupervised, which, I got involved in a lot of different things, which I won't go into on this podcast. Yeah. But this feeling of not really sure where to go and not really sure where to look for that guidance. And so I was a really poor student. I scraped through high school barely. I got into the third location of a college that I had applied to. I lasted kind of one semester there, and just my brain and my learning style just didn't adapt to that traditional schooling method. So I left. I went back into a sales role that I was in as a teenager. I was very good at sales. I was selling people flooring at 15, 16 years old. And I called my old boss. I said, "Hey, I'm leaving school. I'm coming back." Got into that, but really just felt directionless for a long time. I got offered a job working for an insurance company, which was that that salary, the health benefits, the paid vacation, and I was like, okay, this is the next step. This is what I need to do because this is what being an adult means, right? And again, not having anything to fall back on, I took what came in that moment, and I spent 6 years working inside of that company. It was 6 years too long. Okay, maybe 5.5 years too long, but too long nonetheless. And it actually took a moment. I was sitting in the parking lot outside of, sitting outside of the office, and I had what I could only describe as a nervous breakdown and panic attack all balled into one. There was sweating, there was shaking, there was hysterical crying. I just lost myself in those moments, and it lasted for about half an hour. I called my family and my wife at the time to try and figure out what do I do with this? Like I'm freaking out. And everyone kind of said the same thing. They gave me the same advice. Hey, stick it out, find another job, do find the next thing and then go. But in my heart, I knew that as an employee, I was not super employable. I felt with the lack of degree, I just felt like, and I always had this feeling when I worked inside of a company that like I could always do this better. Why are we doing it this way? Like I always wanted to challenge everything. And in that moment, there was something that called to me to just leave. And I did. I quit on the spot. And I started a software company 2 weeks later. That software company, which was a success in some ways and a failure in others, turned into the marketing agency that I own today. And that was 9 years ago. So, and I haven't looked back since. So that was a little bit about the journey.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things you mentioned, and I think they're definitely worth mentioning again. And again, the idea of, you went through definitely a couple of things, parents divorce, we're not fit for school and all that stuff, right? And thinking back of that, one of the first things that I often ask myself is, how is it that somebody that probably didn't have a good teenage years or didn't really have an education or maybe got in trouble at some point in life is able to come out winning at the end, right? And I think that's a very good thing to talk about is, how do you do that? Like I know there's a lot of people like, hey, I'm a troublemaker. I'm not fit for school, or I'm going through all these different challenges. Yet, how did I know that perhaps I do have a future, that I can definitely come out winning on the other side? Because I think that's the biggest thing. I think that's a really good thing to highlight, that it doesn't matter what your background is or what you're going through right now. You can definitely change your trajectory if you put your mind into it or you do make decisions, right?
Yep.
And so how was that for you? Obviously you went through that and you are doing something great, and we're just talking about you're living in Mexico, you're from Canada, being able to do those different things is exactly what some people want. Is like some people don't even get out of their own town just because they feel like they're secluded to that one. There's an abundance of things you can do, right?
Yeah, great question. So I will preface it by saying, like, I mean, it's not like I grew up in like a very harsh environment where there was abuse. So I'm not at the extreme of like, hardship on that front, but it was very trying. And for somebody who didn't have entrepreneurship, mentorship, like anybody in their life really that was that person who I could see the vision and understand, oh, this is a different way I could go. I just saw everybody in my family having traditional jobs, most of which they hated, where they were locked into that 40-hour-a-week thing. And so, but early on, I felt it was very scary, because I just thought, for me, it was about making money. I saw the way that my mom struggled when my dad left, and it wasn't so much financially, but just having to drive 45 minutes to work each day, and then having to try and come home and pick us up from daycare, or like from someone who we were with, try and make dinner just before we could go to bed. Like, I mean, it was just crazy, and I was very motivated to be self-sufficient. So a couple things that I would suggest is experiment as much as humanly possible, because you don't know what there is that's out there that can make you money. Now that the internet's there, you can research and you can find it's. I have conversations with people all the time who are stuck. They think it's stuck, but honestly, you can make money doing so many insane things at the time. And when I was a kid, the internet wasn't as powerful as it was. So at the time, I worked at I sold floors. I worked at a gun club. I worked at a golf course. I was a break dancer. I was a bingo caller. Like, I did all kinds of weird stuff. But what it did was it taught me, oh, okay, me being the front face of something and talking, that actually works really, really well in my favor. So what can I do where I'm the face of it? But I didn't develop and I didn't learn about the skill set of marketing until my app business was just about to tank. And I literally went on YouTube, the University of YouTube, as some people call it. And I spent an entire weekend just watching, videos on how Google ads worked. And I came out of the other end. I said, okay, this is what we're doing. We're taking all our existing customers. We're going to pitch them on Google ads. And then I'm turning that into a business. And that but it wasn't for anything but free content online. But I think the bigger part, and taking a step back into the childhood areas, like, I just did stuff. Now, not everything was illegal. Like, I used to play pool for money. I used to sell weed, so not everything was good, but like going through the process of seeing what you're good at seeing what you like, what you don't like, what motivates you to do more of it, what is the tasks or the actions that when you go to do them, it makes you feel stressed or you procrastinate or you don't want to do it. And you can really shape what you do next out of all the things that you like and then don't like. You can, there is a role, there is a position, there is something for you that is just the things that you like.
Yeah. And I think part of that too is don't get stuck on something, right? I mean, I like the idea of what you mentioned is experiment and just keep doing that. And if you find out pretty fast that this, whatever it is that you're doing, is not something you want to do, then move on to the next thing, right?
Yeah.
You talked about, you obviously got to this idea and said, you know what, that's it. I'm gonna, you quit on the spot and you started your marketing company. Um, I guess at that point, do you had any money saved up? Did you had some means to be able to take care of yourself, or do you went pretty much and didn't have much to begin with? Because that's a big risk. I think again, going back to the idea of that fear, the fear that we have, the fear of the unknown, the fear that I have very little money, and what about if I lose it? What about if it doesn't work? Right? There's a lot of that fear, and I obviously I'm not knocking the 9 to 5. Definitely, that's something that people might like and enjoy, and that's great. Except I know there's also a lot of people that want to leave the 9 to 5. Again, though, they have that fear of many different aspects, and one of them is the money aspect. So how was that for you?
Yeah, so I had a runway of a few months. I was also married. My wife was earning money. Now I didn't consult her on this, so this is actually a big point of friction.
Yeah.
She just said, "Well, what do you mean you quit? Like, what happens to the salary and the 7 weeks vacation? What about our we had a free car, we had a home. Like, I mean, we had this huge setup with it, and I just in that moment it wasn't the right fit, and yeah, it was stressful. I had her to technically fall back on. But she was very much like, you can stay home for a couple of weeks, but like after that, go figure it out. So what I did is I took a job working in a very similar thing. So I was selling advertising for a company on commission base only, but it actually was helping me improve the skill set that I needed to run the business. So I was selling Google ads for another business. But I said to them, like, hey, I'm coming in. I would never take a lead or an opportunity that comes from you and take it for myself ever, ever, ever. But I've got this existing customer base and I am going to try and grow it. So I'm going to phase myself out at some point. And they said, that's fine. You're not on a salary, you're commission. And I mean, there was a small base. And so I honed the skill set while also getting paid to do it, but I did it in a way that was like didn't hold me to those 8 hours a day, didn't hold me to an office. It was kind of a just go door to door or make phone calls or figure it out at sales, right? So I got into something that had a lot more flexibility, and I wasn't making as much money, but I had the flexibility and the time. So that allotted me a little bit more of a buffer. But I think that was an essential thing for me to have.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what you mentioned here, and I think it's so critical. Is you need to start taking action today. Nobody will do it for you. Small steps daily lead to real results over time, and that's exactly what you did, right? I mean, obviously, you had this idea of I'm gonna leave this job, and you kind of fell back on a few other things. Except you were taking actions to be able to follow what you wanted, your dream or the idea at that moment. And so, looking back to that, how much time were you working on your business, right? There's a saying, if you're working on somebody else's business and you go home and you don't work on your business or on yourself, then what is the purpose of that when you're trying to become an entrepreneur, right? And so,
Yep.
how much were you working on your business?
Insane amounts. Yeah, it was like, I mean, I was putting in maybe an hour a day into the job and then working 12 to 14, because originally when it was the software company, like we did not know what we were doing. And we were like, okay, well, we've got these developers that we have to pay. We need to figure out the marketplace for this. We have to figure out app growth. I mean, there was just so many things. It was like a lot of research, a lot of like manually moving data from one thing to another, because we didn't have the money to build an API to send data from one point to another. So we're like, okay, great. Here's a spreadsheet with 18,000 lines. Like, we need to now clean this data up. And we were doing it by hand. So, I mean, like, that part of it was crazy. But I think putting in that grind during that time has created this place now where I now know how to give people the work. I now know how to create this time freedom for myself. And if I wasn't aiming for growth, I could work very, very little now. But you know, to somebody who's got the full-time job, you can't underestimate how much the power of 1 hour a day makes. You
Mhm.
know, from 8 to 9 p.m., set a timer, flip your phone upside down, and do not stop working on that thing until the alarm goes off. That's how I usually do it. I do it in 22-minute sprints, but just do it. Like put your, you know, set a timer for an hour, put your phone upside down, and just work as hard as you can until that goes. The compounding impact of 1 hour a day on your business, you can't, it's incredible. You know, you will see such incredible movement within the first 30 days of taking that action. And even if you just continue at that and it just continues to be a side hustle, it's something that could replace your income relatively quickly, even just putting an hour a day in.
Yeah, I definitely love that, and that the idea of getting rid of any distractions and just really focusing that time and being present for that whatever period of time and doing whatever it is that you're doing. So let's talk about so you went from the software company to this marketing company. Tell me now more about the marketing. How did that develop? What is it? Who's your customer base? What are the things that you do and you focus on?
Absolutely. So yeah, at the time it was funny because we had customers that bought into the app, and I said to my partners, I'm like, guys, we're spending so much money. The progress of this thing is not quick enough. Like we're toast.
Yeah.
But I've now convinced all of our customers to switch over to be a Google ad customer. But I now want control. So I actually took on the business debt that we'd borrowed some money at like later stage, but we had borrowed some money to build it. And I said, like, look, I'll take full responsibility for the debt, but the customers are mine. I moved them to a new corporation, like, and that's it. And so once that happened, I went like full speed ahead. So over the 9 years I've owned it, it's changed a lot. It was like, you know, we used to focus really hard on like e-commerce. E-commerce became very difficult in the wake of drop shipping, and everybody could now have a store without having inventory, which became a nightmare for those ads. And then we've been really focused on just generating leads for, you know, higher end medical. So, you know, dental, audiology, medical spas like Botox and that type of thing, as well as home services like roofing, interlocking, fencing, anybody that's selling like a $5,000 to $20,000 product. And then just recently, so that was kind of the last 5.5 years. And then just recently, I've decided to focus exclusively on audiology. So hearing clinics, people that, you know, check your hearing and give you hearing aids. So we only work with those. At this stage, we have kept some of our legacy customers. Like we still do marketing for Volvo in Canada. So we have some big ones that I'm like, I'm not letting go of those. Right. But at the end of last year, I actually sold, you know, a big piece of it, and I shut down the consulting side of it. And now we're just focused on my coaching and then generating leads for audiology clinics. So very weird industry, but they make an incredible amount of money, and it's just such a beautiful niche. It's very easy because most people in that industry have no idea how to market. So it's good.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about your coaching program. So you help other marketers kind of charge more for whatever they're worth and get some of that time, money, and resources back.
Yeah, so you know, for me, I primarily focus on people in the marketing space just because I've grown my businesses in that space and I just get it. Like it just feels very automatic. You need to generate leads, this is how you do it. You need to close business, this is how you do it. But I got stuck really early on charging very little. I'll never forget my aunt and I had a 3-hour dinner. She goes, I want to understand what it is that you do. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she ripped me apart for my pricing structure. This is like 6-7 years ago. And she was right. And she goes, you know, are you running a charity? I said, no. She says, okay, well then what are you doing? So I actually sought out a pricing coach at the time, and he gave me like a lot of perspective. And then I've kind of developed some of my own perspective. So what I see in a lot of people is they price based on what they feel they're worth per hour, and they don't sell based on what the outcome they can provide to a customer is. And in marketing, it's very tangible, right? If I send a certain amount of traffic and a certain amount of people, you know, do business with you, I know how much money my marketing brought in. So it's it can be very transparent if you use the right tools. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's just really helping people. I usually work with people on a 6-month basis, and we start at the core. Who are you selling to? And based on that, how are you speaking about your product? Are you telling them what you want them to know, or are you telling them what they need to know so they feel like you understand them? That's one of the biggest pieces. You know, people buy when they feel understood. They don't need to understand you. They need to feel like you get it. that you get what they're going through, and that they can trust that you can get them to the finish line on whatever that challenge is. So within that, if you can now start talking about the outcome that you provide, and you can back it up, right? With marketing, it's easy to monitor. So for me, it's like, look, you can give me 10,000 and I can give you 30. Are you happy with that? Great, let's do it. Let's measure every step. Let's go through that process. But within that, it's like, if I can give you 30, why am I charging you 2?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense. Like, if I'm bringing you new customers, that's creating your business to grow. It's creating more opportunities, referrals, so it really is about. So, one of the biggest steps is, I always say to people, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a single person running a marketing business, think about it like this. If you brought on a client, this is the first easy step to fix your price. If you brought on a client today and you did not have the time, energy, or bandwidth to run it, maybe you didn't even have the expertise to run the campaign, right? What would you need? You need a project manager. You would need someone that could oversee the onboarding of the client, make sure that you get all the information, make sure that everything goes smooth. And then you would need someone to run the ads, right? So someone who can plug it all into Google or Facebook ads, write the copy, make the pictures, put it to the landing pages, right? So what would it cost you if you needed to outsource the project management and the media buying, and you needed to make money because you were pushing that out to someone else? What does that price look like, right? So you have to sell as if you have a structure, you've got employees and a team within your company. As soon as you shift your mindset to that, now you could just keep the extra and give that project out to someone else, or you could do all 3 roles and make triple the money. But ultimately, if they're going to some other company that's bigger than your solo operation, they're paying for that anyway. So why are you discounting so heavily? Because it's just you. So you got to get out of the frame of, I'm worth this. And it's like, the product is worth that. And this is what the machine needs to operate. This is how much money the machine needs to keep going. And you got to start charging according to that right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you also take on new people that have never been in the marketing space, and you coach them, or this is only specific people that have already been doing it?
Yeah. So my target audience are people that are already making between 10 and 30,000 monthly recurring.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because I found out very early. So my coaching business started because, during COVID, I had helped some friends with some strategies, and they were blown away. And I was like, that's obvious, right? And they're like, no, that's not. I'm like, oh shoot, okay. This is like I've accumulated this knowledge over the 8 years I've been operating. And so I sent out an email to my email list, and I made about $28,000 in coaching revenue. But I said, if you don't make your money back, I will give it back to you. I don't want it if it doesn't help. And there were a few people who were just getting started, and I couldn't motivate them to reach out, to decide what the product was going to be, to post content, promoting them. Like, they just wouldn't do it. And I found out that I'm not the motivator. I'm not the let's get you from 0 to 3, but I'll take you from, 3 to 7. That's my sweet spot. So they have to be selling. They have to have made money from their product or service. I will help enhance those things, help them find better clients, help them build better systems, be able to hand off that work successfully so they can get out of the tasks that they don't want to do. That's my sweet spot. But yeah, I can't help people getting started necessarily as well. Yeah.
No, that's fine. No, that definitely makes sense. I mean, definitely it is. So talk about the idea of this, because I think we all have, many people have maybe that idea that I want to be able to venture out into what life has to offer. So you are from Canada. After Canada, I don't know, did you automatically go to Mexico, or did you go to another country? What drove you to do that? What was the motivation and to be able to explore that? And obviously running your business, from Mexico right now, where are your customers based?
Yeah, so it was a desire of mine for a long time, and I've had a remote. When I started my business in 2013, it was always remote. I've never had an office. My employees have always been all over, but I never felt like I had the right stability to just venture out. And maybe it was just me being scared. I don't know, because there's a lot of excuses you can make. Oh, well, it won't work because ABC. There's so many reasons. I sold everything. I live out of one suitcase. I have a cat called Taco. We float around the world together. It's amazing. It's been Portugal, Italy, 3 different places in Mexico, California. I mean, it's been 2.5 years now of just fully remote. But I think, for me, it was like I had some family illness. My mom got cancer. My grandfather got a brain tumor. My dad got really, really sick. And it was like this 2.5, 3 year delay of just kind of being in the hospital, being there for family. And eventually it was kind of like, we're just giving up this time, and life is just going by. I was like, we just have to go. We just have to leave and just see what it looks like, because you can always come back. I had my stuff in storage for a long time. I had an apartment that I was subletting in Toronto. I never really like gave up the thing. It was kind of like, well, we can always go back. And it's amazing when you leave and you just pack one bag and you end up on the other side and you realize how simple life really is and how little you actually need to be happy to survive. I mean, it is the most freeing experience. And I'm actually right now, I'm working on detaching from the Canadian tax system, setting up a company in Dubai because of the tax implication. I mean, I've seen like the light and seen what's possible as a global citizen and how simple it can actually be. And I don't know that I could go back. I don't know if I could go back. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. So, I mean, again, you can definitely have the business, have the experience. And I always tell people, if you're going to die, make sure you die with memories, not with dreams, right? Because a lot of people I have the dream of, having this business or going to this place or whatever that might be. And it's a dream. And sometimes that dream doesn't come true. I'd rather die with memories that I actually did something, whatever that might have been, right? Whether it was publishing your first book, whether it's, traveling all over the place and things like that. So that's definitely amazing. If people want to connect with you and learn more about, your coaching or your marketing business, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the most interesting and fun place to find me is on Instagram at the Mike Moll, MikeMoll. I incorporate a little bit of business and a little bit of like travel. I look back through my photos sometimes and I'm like, is this actually my life? Like I'm blown away sometimes. Yeah. It's so fun. And then the coaching business is mikemoll.co.co. And then the marketing thing, unless you're an audiologist, you probably don't want to find it anyway. We're not taking on customers in the main agency anymore. So
right. Yeah. Okay, no, that's fine. So obviously, with you've been to many different countries, many different cultures, many different things you've seen. Have there been any, in terms of just growth, personal growth, and in really getting yourself out there? Has there been any things you've learned through different cultures that you've taken to apply on a day-to-day basis to help you with this positive state of mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I learned the most living in Sayulita, Mexico. It's this tiny little surf town, about 3,500 people and maybe about 2,000 nomadic people. During peak season, the tourists really ramp that number up. But during the off season, it's like this very quiet, it's like a village. Every single person, where they work, where they're going to be. Everybody smiles. Everybody says hi every day. Seeing how simple life could be there allowed me to let go of so many attachments I had to ego-driven things, clothing, just like shopping and being a consumer as a whole. Mexico time is a real thing. I mean, someone says they're going to be there at 6, it could be 6:30. Could be 7, like we don't know. It's Mexico. It's totally legit. It's crazy. And as much as that drives me crazy as a very punctual Canadian, there's something about just like spending time by yourself, waiting, having nothing to do, not having, a book or a laptop, just spending that time like inside yourself, thinking or just watching the ocean. I think that people in warm weather are happier people. The ocean is a very healing place. And I think everybody should try and experience at least a few months, like just integrated and living by the beach, because there's just something so relaxing and so incredible about having that experience in life. And just my brain changed. And I was in Sayulita for a while, but my brain genuinely changed, and like I'm way more calm. I take things way less seriously. If it's not in my control, I don't even think about it anymore. And that's a really hard thing to do. And that came with like the beach plus therapy plus coach. I mean, I'm doing a lot on the personal development side, but now I just find so many times where like my team or people I know, they're like, oh, aren't you worried about this? I'm like, nope, it's out of my hands. I did what I can do. Don't care. And they're like, what? And 3 years ago, I would have been, thinking about every angle. How do I get control back over this? I was such a control freak. And it really just helped me to let go and experience life and just let things be as they're going to be. And I just feel much more calm energy with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have any daily rituals or habits that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I read. I read every morning. Right now, I'm splitting my time between fiction and then kind of books on coaching. I want to figure out what steps I can take to be a better coach, and so I'm like diving into that. I journal, so I have a daily prompt with 7 different things that I write. It takes me about 5 to 7 minutes. It's like things you're grateful for, what would make today great, goals, affirmations, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of is actually one of the more interesting ones. Sometimes it's hard to do, but sometimes the stuff that you write is like, holy smokes, I didn't realize.
So
I was
let me ask
afraid
you,
of
that's
that.
interesting because that's interesting. I've obviously heard about, journaling, about affirmation, all these positive things to an extent. When you're doing and journaling about what you're afraid of, I guess what is the what do you get on the other side, right? What does that do in terms of doing that on a day-to-day basis?
When you force yourself to write something about it every day, you realize how many little subconscious fears and things that hold us back that you have. Because when you're just thinking, oh, here's everything's great, da 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 da, and you don't confront the things that you're actually nervous about or afraid of. Like the other day was like a desire for results without taking action. And then today I just wrote laziness because I woke up in a certain way. And yesterday I didn't accomplish anything I really wanted to, if I'm being honest about it. And I just like that laziness could compound. And I know I have that in me to be lazy. So being lazy scares me a lot. So just forcing yourself to write it. And sometimes you're like, well, nothing at all. And you're like, but if you make yourself write it, there's so many like nuanced things that you're actually subconsciously afraid of that come to the surface. It's a very interesting experiment. So I do that every day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that you do besides those things?
Yeah, I do. Right now I'm on a kick where I'm doing 120 push-ups and 200 sit-ups the moment I wake up. So that's fun. I do I do math puzzles. Every morning of these puzzles called Ken, which is kind of like Sudoku, but like way more hard, way more difficult. They're amazing.
Yeah.
I always go for a walk. I always listen to a podcast, hang out with the cat. But yeah, my morning routine's like over 2 hours long. It's pretty crazy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've heard of 30, 45 minutes, so on and so forth. That's actually pretty good. Then definitely. And so I guess the last question I have for you is, are you fluent in any other language now?
Working on Spanish. When I first got to Mexico, when COVID hit, my business was in extreme crisis and we lost an absurd amount of money. I kept my staff all on, which I don't know how, but we did. But yeah, the first year I was so distracted. And then the second year I was there, like beginning of the year, was I broke up with my partner of 5 years. And that was like the first few months I was really kind of, just trying to find myself and trying to see what that all meant. And then I started taking Spanish. So I'm taking 4 hours of Spanish per week until the last 6 weeks. My teacher went to go do her doctorate, so I'm currently lazily looking for another instructor. But my plan is to be fluent in Spanish by the end of the year. And that's probably the only language I'll learn because my brain doesn't process language easily. Like this is the hardest thing I've ever done is try and learn Spanish. Yeah. It's really true. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, then I might have to have you back on another podcast, and it's going to be in Spanish then. So we can do some practice. So
January 2023, I'm in.
All right. Well, we're going to have to put it on the calendar. I had, I think, probably a total of maybe 10 guests that I've done Spanish podcasts. So, yeah.
Love it.
Mike, again, thank you. It was such a great time talking to you and having this conversation with you. Is there anything else that I can that you want to say before I let you go?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground today, and I hope that some of my story and some of the things that I've kind of discovered can maybe help. If it helps one other person, awesome. And yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and I really appreciate you. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor, please make sure you go ahead and follow Mike on Instagram. And if you need some sort of assistance, do reach out. And also, please share this message because somebody needs to hear this message. And I'll see you guys at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Bye.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you've tuned into this podcast. You can find me at your favorite podcast platform where you can like, subscribe, comment, and share. And to learn more about myself, my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at your social media. Thanks for joining me, and I am looking forward to having you at the next episode. And know you truly can overcome anything.